this is Lomi, and in this video I'm sharing information on my favorite materials for doll face-ups. I'm asked about materials more than anything else, so this video should answer a lot of those questions. It might surprise you, but one of my favorite paints for face-ups is Martha Stewart Craft Acrylics. They're smooth and rich in pigment, and they thin more easily than artist paint, making them a better choice for airbrushing. I even prefer them over paints like Liquitex and the Michaels Store brand Artist's Loft. Despite branding, there's not much difference between these two paints as far as quality. One of my least favorites is Citadel. This paint is great for minis, but not so much for dolls. It's best used straight and doesn't have enough pigment to thin well. My favorite paint brand is Golden, but I used the last of mine a while back and I haven't been able to order more yet. As far as paintbrushes go, most of them are inexpensive. I use a variety of fluffy artist brushes for most blushing, nail art brushes for lining the eyes and applying gloss, and a chisel blender for eyebrows and lips. For fine details like eyelashes, you might think something like this Tin Zero brush would be a good choice, but it's so small it can't hold much paint. My favorite brush for lashes and brows is this Low Cornell script liner in size 18-0. If the sizes confuse you, remember that a size 0 brush is small, but a 000 brush is even smaller. When a size is listed as something like this, 18/0, it means 18 zeros. The higher the number before the slash, the smaller the brush. I don't use watercolor pencils a lot, just for touching up eyeliner and creating lip lines, because painted lip lines are often too opaque for my taste. I also sometimes use the white pencil to sketch the shape of eyebrows. I prefer Derwent, but Faber-Castell are good too. I've tried a variety of pastels and I've often heard that Schmink and Rembrandt are the best, but because they're so soft it can be hard to make a smooth powder. Instead, I prefer inexpensive Low Cornell pastels. They're more chalky but very smooth, and they grind into a fine powder that's easy to use to create smooth blushing. For sealants, I use different types for different jobs. Minwax polyacrylic is meant for sealing floors and furniture, so it's very durable. I use it as a brush-on sealant for things like heavily blushed or painted fantasy parts where chipping is likely. The only downside is it only comes in gloss and satin. My favorite sealant is Citadel Purity Seal. It's just as durable as MSC, but easier to find and easier to use in humid weather. It's also less likely to frost or cloud. I've used Tester's Dull Coat before, but this is the same can I've had for 5 years since I did my first face-up. I keep it for emergencies, but I don't prefer it. Last is Liquitex Matte Medium, which can be used as a brush-on sealant or mixed 50-50 with water to use with an airbrush. Since it has no fumes, it's a great option for indoor use. It's also the best choice for vinyl dolls, since spray sealants can turn sticky when used on vinyl. However, it's not as durable as the other sealants. For removal of face-ups on resin, Winsor & Newton is best, but rubbing alcohol will do in a pinch. For vinyl and some ABS plastics, I use acetone. And for extra scrubbing, there's a piece of magic eraser sponge. For gloss, I mostly use Americana Triple Thick. It can be difficult to work with, but it's very durable and won't yellow. I also like Tamiya X22 gloss, but since it's solvent-based, you have to be careful what you use it on, as it can eat through some sealants just like alcohol. For shimmer on face-ups, I use Jacquard Pearl X. When doing additive modifications, I use both Epoxy Sculpt and Tamiya Epoxy, but I prefer the Epoxy Sculpt. For putty, I use Tamiya Putty and Bondo Spot and Glazing Putty. They're basically the same, but the Bondo is red and less than half the cost for a larger tube. My airbrush is a Master G233 dual action gravity feed brush. I paid less than $30 for it on Amazon and it's a great brush for the price. The only thing I don't like is that paint sometimes builds up in the cup around the nozzle, causing splatters. Most of the time I just take the cup off and airbrush without it. The compressor I use is a Husky 8-gallon tank compressor. It actually belongs to my husband. There are a few other odds and ends needed, like poster tack, cotton balls and swabs for cleaning mistakes, a basic sharpener for my watercolor pencils, and flow aid for thinning paints. Then, most importantly, there's my respirator. It doesn't have cartridges right now because I just used them up, but when sanding epoxy, putty, or resin, or when using aerosol sealants like Purity Seal or Testers, you always need respiratory protection. And that's it. If you have any more questions about materials I use, leave me a comment below and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you for watching. Bye!